Hey friends, it's Rick Miller, and this is
Xing the Gap,
an intergenerational interview series where I'm the Gen X host, trying to bridge gaps of understanding with two guests, one older and one younger. And today I'm excited to welcome Ashton Applewhite and Dr. Pooja Viswanathan. Ashton is a Brooklyn-based speaker, activist, and author of several best-selling books, including This Chair Rocks, a Manifesto Against Ageism. She's also a leading spokesperson for the movement to raise awareness of ageism and to dismantle it. Pooja is the Toronto-based co-founder and CEO of Braze Mobility, a leading developer of smart wheelchair technology in the age tech space. Oh, and she has a PhD in robotics. Together, we talk about being a generalist, how aging isn't icky, mobility as a human right, how binaries are bad, failing better, ageism, ableism, and sexism, involving community and design, the problem with generational labels, working grandmothers, and a game show with Jane Fonda. And it was her own series of what videos?
Oh, it was like fitness videos or something.
Yes.
Oh, I'm really surprised. This is all like my mom's. Like I've somehow absorbed through osmosis through my mom.
That's the way learning works,
to
right?
lose the weight for my first pregnancy. Oh my God, I remember them with hell.
To hell and back again. It's
Xing the Gap.
Ashton and Pooja, welcome. I'm glad we can make this happen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So let's say we're meeting in an elevator or in a Zoom call, actually, and you had a minute to kind of tell your story. I'm a storyteller. I like stories. What would your story be? Pooja, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of Braze Mobility, and at Braze, we make blind spot sensors that can be added to any wheelchair and essentially transform it into a smart wheelchair. So the system automatically detects obstacles and provides alerts to the user through intuitive lights, sounds, and vibrations.
Okay. Where do you live? I don't even know where you are right now.
I'm based out of Mississauga. I just moved here from downtown Toronto. So, been in kind of greater Toronto area for most of my life.
Great. What's your doctorate?
So my PhD is in robotics and assistive technology.
Thank you, Pooja. Ashton, noted author, advocate, and so many other things. Why don't you tell us a little bit of your story?
You kind of did it for me. I am
Okay,
a generalist. I am a generalist who could never figure out what to do or be when she grew up. I think that's why if you had told me 15 years ago I would be fascinated by aging, I would have said, why do I want to think about something icky and depressing? But I started to think about it because it dawned on me that it was happening to me. And it is so fascinating because it is not just something sad or icky that old people do. It is how we move through life. Aging is living. To live is to age. When I realized it was happening to me, I'm a nerdy person. I'm not an academic, but I started researching longevity and realized in a matter of months, if not weeks, how much of what I thought I knew about late life was way more negative, not nuanced enough, flat out wrong. I very soon realized that the biggest obstacle to understanding aging was ageism, prejudice, and discrimination on the basis of age between our ears and in the world. So I somehow gradually turned into an activist advocate to raise awareness of how this bias divides us and is bad for our health, is bad for our communities, and how we can learn about it and hopefully dismantle it.
Yeah, it's one of the gaps I'm trying to bridge in the many gaps of Xing the Gap.
Inherently, I mean, bringing people, just having a significantly older or younger friend or colleague is an anti-ageist act.
And as a generalist, I can relate to that too. I studied architecture and I got 2 degrees in architecture. And architects are generally known to know a little bit about everything, but not a hell of a lot about anything. And so we rely on the expertise of others. But I'm going to talk about ableism and ageism just a little bit later. First, Pooja, I wanted to ask you, I wear a lot of hats, but as I said before, I'm mostly a storyteller. I'm deeply interested in personal experiences that motivate our choices over the course of our lives. Do you have one personal story in your family or in your own experience that launched you into being an entrepreneur in the accessibility space and working on independence for people with disabilities?
Yeah, I guess the backstory here is that my grandparents, lived very long, healthy lives, and had very high quality of life. They had their independence and mobility, until they passed away, and so it was kind of a little bit of a shocker for me when I went into a long-term care facility for the first time and saw that a lot of the residents there were slumped over in manual wheelchairs, that they didn't have the strength to self-propel, but they weren't also allowed to use power wheelchairs, which could have really contributed to a more increased quality of life. And the reason was really just safety issues, safety concerns. People were, the staff was afraid that, they would hurt themselves or residents, do property damage and those sorts of things. And seeing the difference in the quality of life that the residents had there compared to my grandparents is actually what really inspired me, or I guess encouraged me to figure out, what I could do to help increase mobility and independence for those residents. And then, of course, it ended up ballooning into more. But that's really how it started, and that's really kind of the basis of everything that we do, is to try and shift that attitude where people are no longer thinking about it as a nice to have or a privilege, but a very critical component of quality of life, and actually a fundamental human right.
Mm-hmm. What Pooja's talking about makes me think about an important theme in my work. It took me a long, long time to find my stride and sort of my path. But one of my working titles, one of those brilliant ideas, you wake up at 2 a.m. and you think I've solved it all, and then at 7 a.m. it doesn't seem quite so brilliant. But my working title was at 2 a.m, binaries are bad. And there are whether it's straight, gay, old, young, two of them that recur a lot in this sphere that we're talking about today are mobile, immobile, and dependent, independent. It's so American, this idea of you're going to keep to age well or successfully, one of my least favorite phrases. If you wake up in the morning, you're aging successfully, but is this idea that you're doing it well to the degree to which you can continue to look and move like a younger version of yourself. I'm not suggesting you're pushing this, Pooja, by any means, but it's sort of the dominant, hyper-capitalist, very ableist narrative. So I'm always trying to stress to older people in particular, look, you're probably not going to be able to do things the way you used to, but if it's an important thing to you, you're likely going to be able to continue to do it, even if you can't do it the way you did when you were younger. And there are many arenas, honestly, sex comes to mind, where doing it, knowing a bit more and having a bit more experience actually can make the experience better.
Fail better. This has become my motto over the years, and it comes from a quote by author Samuel Beckett. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. It applies to art, to science, to sports, to tech innovation, to anything really, including aging. Older people who have more lived experience have tried more, have failed more, and this is a good thing. It's the source of wisdom and humility, and leads to an acceptance that nothing is ever perfect and nothing is ever fixed. So instead of focusing on failure, which is natural and inevitable, maybe we should focus on better, what it is we can do and keep doing to improve our quality of life and the lives of those around us. Pooja, Ashton and I were emailing about conversation partners, and I mentioned that I'd be looking for someone in the age tech space, as my partner on this is the LEAP community with CABI, Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation. And Ashton said I was free to matchmake, but she wrote, fair warning, I push back, gently, I promise, when aging is framed as a problem that tech can solve. Which I think is a fair statement. And I'm wondering, before Ashton gets to push back gently, how do you feel about technology?
Let's not make it personal.
No, it's not at all personal. It's just a general thought. I also agree that we're in an age where, technology is seen as a cure-all for everything. And that is part of the solution as a tool, but it's not the whole solution. So I'm wondering, how do you feel generally about technology solving problems, and maybe more specifically about the technology you're developing with wheelchairs and making them smart?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I don't think there's any pushing back necessary here. I don't see the problem that we're solving is not aging. The problem that we're solving is of people not having the choice for being mobile in the way that they want to be, and having the freedom to navigate their environments in ways that are possible with technology that already exists, but they're being denied that right because of issues that are valid, right? Like if you look at long-term care staff, I mean, obviously they are concerned about safety of everyone. So it's not unreasonable that, they are trying to keep everyone safe and they're doing the best that they can. However, for me as a technology developer, that just seemed unacceptable that in an age where we have cars that have sensors, nobody has eyes in the back of their head. Nobody can see what's going on in the back. We do actually very actively try to shift the narrative where we find oftentimes the blame is attributed to the driver because of their diagnosis and that's really not what it is. And I think doing that kind of takes away the responsibility from people that do develop technology like the wheelchairs themselves to not actually address the real problem, which is actually the design of the technology, which is what creates the barriers. It's not, disability is not what's creating the barriers here, right? It's actually the lack of accessibility that's the barrier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a great saying in disability justice that the problem is not the wheelchair. The problem is the stairs between me and where I want to go. The problem is the environment.
And by the way, your book, your most recent book is called This Chair Rocks.
This Chair Rocks, a Manifesto Against Ageism. So it's a sort of a play on the idea that we should all sort of, retire gently and rock quietly in the background.
Is your chair comfortable right now?
It's pretty comfy. I mean,
Good.
I have augmented it with this very professional device known as a pillow, because even though it's one of those fancy ass Aeron chairs, it still doesn't work all that well, but hey.
So Ashton, in one of your blogs online, I read and you wrote, quote, "It's up to the rest of us to push back against every form of social bias. Our testing at Outreach prioritizing men over women, white people over people of color, youngers over older, cis people over trans. Are we including the most exposed, not just olders, but people with disabilities and those who are homeless or incarcerated in our efforts? We are engaged in a massive collective experiment to protect the vulnerable, whoever they turn out to be. It's high stakes and it's as intersectional as it can get. We are truly all in this together." Now, that was written in the early stages of the pandemic, but I still find it very relevant today. Can you talk us through
than ever, for sure.
Yeah, this high stakes intersectionality? Again, Xing the gap. I see myself in a bit of an intersection in life where I am my kids and my parents are both, anxious in their own ways and need, pulling me in different directions. But generally, as a society, this high stakes intersectionality, where do you feel we need to be heading?
Well, I think that where you head depends on your own identity. We know that we each stand in a unique point of an intersection of advantages and disadvantages. Even wealthy white men, are in a sense blinded by their own privilege and impoverished by it. That's something I took a while to get my head around. We are clearly not going to challenge climate change in any meaningful way without humans everywhere around the world coming together. From a point of view of age advocacy, we know that politicians are already exploiting really effectively deep divisions of race, of class, of nationalism, right? That's never our friend, of gender. We cannot afford to add age to the mix. We need everyone in the boat. And the biggest obstacle to a lot of people being in that metaphorical boat is poverty, is disability, is lack of access. I mean, when what Pooja was talking about, and I'm sure she knows this, is our older people / people with disabilities, who are not the same by any means, are they involved in the design? I happened to meet the guy who heads Michael Graves' design, and Michael Graves had, I believe, a stroke soon after he was hired a long time ago. And so guess what? He got involved in wheelchair design and cane design. And one thing he had his designers do is use a cane for a week.
This is Michael Graves, the architect, designer, famous. Okay. Yeah.
And so I would add, bring in people who can't, as you said, Pooja, who have trouble looking around from a chair, who are using a wheelchair, because we need to involve the community that is most affected by the thing, whether it's climate change, whether it's a highway coming through, whether it's lack of education, whether it's fantastic wheelchairs. Involve the people who are not normally invited to the table. I mean, that's the whole thing. Diversity, equity, inclusion is fantastic, but it doesn't mean anything unless the people who aren't usually traditionally part of that conversation have a voice, and that voice is listened to and respected.
Leap. Listening to and respecting older adults is not only a goal of this podcast, but it's why our main partner is LEAP, an online community created by CABI, the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation. It's worth a plug here because LEAP has a senior advisory panel of older adults who are there to share, learn, collaborate, and advise on solutions that are being developed to make aging better. It's the perfect example of involving the community affected by the change in question and bringing them into the conversation about how to best navigate that change. It's when you actually meet at the intersection, at the messy X, that you can meaningfully talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let's take the leap. I think that's how I came across your name, Pooja. Was you were connected to CABI was it through the summit?
No, we're a portfolio company of their market readiness program.
Right. Okay. So Pooja, I mean, we didn't talk about generations a little bit, and I hinted I might get some pushback here too. But do you identify with a particular generation at all?
I don't think so. I mean, it's kind of strange because I do feel sometimes like the odd one out when talking about a lot of these things because. I see a lot of conversations kind of like, Ashton was mentioning about aging being spoken about as a negative thing. And I find that absolutely bizarre because we're aging since the day we're born. So I don't understand this concept of like bucketing people as, oh, you're aging and this bucket is not. Like, what?
I know. Like using aging as an adjective in front of like parents or celebrities, like everyone is aging.
Yep.
Yeah. And same thing with about caregiving, right? I mean, everyone's a caregiver. I caregive for my daughter, but I'm also, if I'm sick, guess who's caring for me? My husband or my parents or whoever it is. So,
yeah, or your kids' friends. It's not just biology either, right? You care for people in your community.
Yeah. So I grew up in a kind of family where, I think it was very common to mix with people of all ages. So even as a child, I'm very grateful to my parents for doing that. But I would often see other homes where, it would be like, oh, the adults are talking, kids go in the other room. And that was never the case in my home. So even when we were children, we were always in the midst of people much older than us having, adult conversations, appropriate adult conversations, obviously, and we were a part of it. And so, even today, I have friends who, span a pretty wide age range, and that's very normal for me. And I find ways of connecting with everyone in very unique ways. So I think maybe that's why I kind of don't really feel like, there's a lot of ways in which I don't feel like I fit in. With the age bucket, and then also just because of my background and being an entrepreneur, people are always like, what are you? And I'm like, well, I wasn't a computer scientist. And I do, but I'm also, now the CFO and the CTO and the CEO of the company. And so I wear so many hats, even in terms of my career, that I've never been one for labels. And so I find, generally speaking, I struggle with any conversation that involves labels, like even around gender. Like I really struggle with that because I just don't, I'm comfortable in my own identity, but not necessarily needing to give it a label.
Can I talk about why I hate generational labels?
Please go ahead. Yeah, I didn't let you speak about that, so you can dump on that.
I love what you said, Pooja, because you have grown up in a culture where you have contact with people of all ages. That is anomalous. That is very unusual in the U.S., where most people don't even have a close friend more than 10 years older and younger, right? And that's whatever scientists don't even agree on what a generation is. So I can't even say that it's half of your mother is a different generation from you, as is your child. Other than that, we don't know what the term means. But there's generational labels are so tempting because we love to put things in buckets. We love to feel we belong to something, but they inherently stereotype. You asked if I identify with this. The word boomer is about to slip out through my lips reluctantly, but only because I'm trying consciously to break a habit, which we all have. Habits are hard. But I was born in 1952, which most demographers agree is dead center of the mid-century, of the post-war baby boom. But the biggest problem with generational labels is that the minute we have a label, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, a whole set of associations click into place. And not only could they not possibly be accurate in referring to millions of people born roughly around the same time, the biggest problem is that they give age more credit than it deserves and said, race, ethnicity, class all have much more to do with shaping our affinities, our experience, our identities than age does. And it lends itself to old versus young framing. Oh, those boomers can't, manage technology. Oh, those Gen Zers, they're so self-indulgent. None of those stereotypes are true. And it feeds this myth of a generation gap, of generational warfare, which does not exist. I mean, let me just say, Rick, of course, it is different being born in 1952 and being born in 1992. Age is real, right? Yep. And we each have a unique set of cultural affinities. I'm afraid you're going to get to this in the scary quiz at the end. So I don't mean to say age differences do exist. We need to acknowledge them. We need to acknowledge all the differences. That's the glorious tension, right? We need to acknowledge the ways in which each of our experience uniquely informs us, but also reach beyond that to the universality of human experience and the things I may have in common with someone who is very different from me in age and appearance.
Generations. Even though this podcast and the Boom trilogy of stage shows connected to it are framed as intergenerational conversations, it's worth saying that my ultimate goal is to find a shared human experience to break down generational barriers altogether while also celebrating individual difference. I was born in the 1970s, and I read Douglas Copeland's Generation X. I found that the generational cohort labeling thing seemed primarily a marketing effort, a kind of commodification of individuals to group them into little boxes so they can be better pegged for targeted advertising. Ultimately, these labels are reductive and they diminish the value of individual experience. Or maybe I'm just a disaffected directionalist Gen Xer.
Well, here's a question actually for you. Do you think that whatever these things are, the generation gaps, do you think they're also perceived differently based on gender? Because I guess, again, the stereotypes, right, around, do you find that men getting older is seen as more of a positive than women getting older? Is that something
aging is gendered.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, because I was going to say, because when I think of age, just in general, when I think of someone who is older, my natural association is experience. That's kind of the positive correlation that I have is, oh, they're older. Oh, they're more experienced. And that's how I think of my own age, right? As I get older, I am so appreciative of the wealth of knowledge that I'm acquiring. And that's why I look forward to getting older. I don't see it as a negative at all. I'm quite pleased, and
you're going to have a kick-ass wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. And so I enjoy the aging process. And I think it's all about, I find it a very graceful and dignified process. But
it is if you're lucky. It is if you have resources, of course. But then something can happen. I mean, if we fall in, break a bone, none of us are dignified, right? But aging is very much gendered. Women are penalized for appearing to look our age, God forbid. And that is, intersectionality. We face the double whammy of ageism and sexism, of course. So, that's very much the case.
I'm going to shift this to, I think it's a good little segue to working moms. Ashton, about 25 years ago, you wrote another book, right? Maybe I'll start there. It was called Cutting Loose: Why Women Who End Their Marriages Do So Well. And I think one, it was Ms. Magazine described it as rocket fuel for launching new lives. Now you're in a new stage of life and you've moved from working mom to working grandmother. And when we were again planning this conversation around Pooja's childcare schedule, you wrote, tell Pooja that being a working grandmother is much easier. So I figured, why don't you just tell her your version of that story? And then maybe Pooja can share a little bit of what she thinks about it.
I wrote that first book, needless to say, both the book about ending my marriage and the book about growing older have to do with things that happened to me. And it was analogous. I learned very early on that 2/3 of divorces in the US were initiated by women. Very common statistic up there. Pooja's nodding at the top of the internet. I was astonished. I thought it must have been like 98% men ditching their sad, useless, withered ancient wives like me for fertile trophy versions. And that's what set me on a path of why don't we know this? And it was very much the same thing 20 years later. Why don't we have a more nuanced and accurate view of getting older? Not to disregard the scary things, but to address the experience, the gains. I love the way you put it about experience, Pooja. Not old people are not necessarily wise. That's another ageist stereotype. Lots of us don't seem to have learned much along the way, but we have experience, right?
Experience, not wisdom.
Yes, sometimes wisdom, but
sometimes, yeah.
Some children are wise, right?
I mean, but they're not necessarily correlated.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So why don't we talk about it in its messy, mixy, uppy way, and talk about it from all these different perspectives rather than just old people are a burden, aging is a problem. It's just not.
Well, I guess in the spirit of wisdom or experience, to me, wisdom has always been learning that you actually know very little, and that's what I'm trying to achieve with my experience.
I feel like I know a few things better than I ever did, but the sense of things I don't know anything about gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh yeah, humility is a big part of wisdom, and in that spirit of not knowing everything and humility, I'm going to throw you into the game show. I think aging well also means not losing your creative spirit and wanting to be playful, whether that's playing with your grandkids or even just, not playing with yourself, but that's a whole other topic. So.
Hey, all's fair.
Oh, it's fair.
Consenting adults.
Okay, so Pooja, we're going to start with you. Okay, these are some questions aimed at you. Now, if you don't know them, Ashton might come in and steal a point, but and then I'm going to fire away at Ashton. Okay, so you ready?
Oh my God, is this like general knowledge? I'm going to suck at this.
Yeah, it's good. And knowing you're going to suck, you might surprise yourself. And Ashton might also be surprised that you don't know who the 4 Beatles are, but that's okay. That might not be a question. Okay, I'm going to start with this. Here we go. What does it mean when someone says, mind your P's and Q's?
I know this, but it's not coming to me. Mind your...
I'll say it like this. Mind your P's and Q's. Pooja. What is it meant?
Mind your...
I'm going to have to... Ashton.
Is it etiquette? Is it just you put your fork in the right
business.
place?
Mind your business.
It is mind your business. Oh, no, but what does the P and Q stand for?
Beeswax.
Yeah.
I thought the P's and Q's were acronyms. I thought it was mind your business, but I thought you were looking for what the P and Q...
We're both failing. So far, I think it's 0-0.
That's okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, here's a music one, Pooja. What happened the day the music died? The day the music died. Who died that day? Any idea? It's a Don McLean song from the 70s.
American
Pie. Okay,
no idea
Ashton,
what it refers
who
to.
died? You have no idea? What's the matter with you? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm not good at this.
It's when Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens died in a plane crash. Okay, so far 0-0. We're doing really well here. Okay, here is multiple choice, Pooja. Who sang Unchained Melody? Was it the Everly Brothers, the Righteous Brothers, or the Smothers Brothers?
God.
God did not write that song. Oh, my love. The one where Patrick Swayze is, all over as a ghost.
Can you say the 3 names again?
Yep. The Everly Brothers, the Righteous Brothers, or the Smothers Brothers.
I'm just going to guess Righteous Brothers.
Ding, you got it. Pure luck.
I have no idea.
Okay,
that just sounded more right than the
I would
others.
have guessed Everly.
Oh, really?
So you would have won anyway.
Ashton, you're probably not going to get any points, and these aren't even directed at you. Still with you, Pooja. What iconic 70s rock band wore black and white makeup, platform heels, fire-breathing, blood-spitting, shooting rockets? 1 word, 4 letters. Rock band of the 70s. Huge theatrics.
Oh, Kiss?
Yes, Kiss. You get that.
Yeah?
Okay.
Oh my God, that's like the only name I know.
Okay. Name a member of Led Zeppelin.
Oh, no, I'm terrible with this.
Name a member of the Rolling Stones.
Oh, I'm terrible.
I can do these.
I don't know any of these
Frank
names.
Zappa.
Ashton?
Mick Jagger.
Did you say Frank Zappa?
Wasn't he the first one?
No, Frank Zappa was his own world. No. In the early 80s, Pooja, Jane Fonda launched a successful venture, and it was her own series of what videos?
Oh, it was like fitness videos or something.
Yes.
Oh,
I did
was
wow,
that?
I'm really surprised. This is all like my mom's. Like I've somehow absorbed through osmosis through my mom.
That's
I did
the way
that,
learning works,
to lose
right?
the weight for my first pregnancy. Oh my God, I remember them with hell.
I remember the
hellishly.
cover of Jane Fonda on the video. Okay, Nancy Reagan, when she was first lady, had a famous and infamous anti-drug campaign slogan. It was 3 words. Just
Say no.
No.
Okay, I'm going to give that to both of you. You both got that.
Wait, am I allowed to interrupt if I know it?
Well, you did, and that's okay.
I did.
I'll allow that.
I know that one.
Okay, Pooja, name the Flintstones. Any of them.
Oh, Fred.
Good. Wife?
Oh, don't remember.
Wilma.
Wilma. There you go. That's right.
Do I get a bonus point for that?
Yes. Bonus point to Pooja. I insist for the humming the melody. I am going to miss every single one when
I'd only got a couple more here for Pooja. What's a TV dinner?
A TV dinner. Is that like mac and cheese or something?
Well, they might have served mac and cheese. Ashton?
It's a little pre-dinner on a tray with the meat and the potatoes and the sauce that you ate on a little fold-out table in front of the TV.
Like airplane food that they made. It was a huge
yeah.
thing.
That's what I was visualizing, but yeah, I didn't realize
Okay.
that.
Give it to Pooja. She
anything.
visualized it.
I'll give it to Pooja for having it in her mind.
You have to visualize it on the cheesy fold-out tray, though. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, that's right. And you watch in front of the TV because that's how people gathered around their fire in the 1950s, was watching TV. Last question for Pooja. In what decade did the birth control pill become popular? In what decade? Take a guess.
Decade. The birth control pill. Let me say 90s?
Ashton?
I would say 70s. That's when I went on it.
It came out in the 60s. It became super popular late 60s around the sexual revolution. But in the 70s is when, divorce was more acceptable and these things, birth control, started becoming very popular. So I think I'll give you a point, Ashton. And 90s, nope, I'm not going to give anything for that. Although I'll give you a big virtual round of applause, Pooja. This is going to be the lowest scoring game show ever in the history of my podcast. Ashton, over to you. Name a boy band.
God, Stop and Go. What's their stupid name? In Sync.
There you go. What is DM an acronym of?
Direct message.
There you go. What does thirsty mean in modern slang if someone is thirsty?
Horny? No idea.
Pooja?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Looking for
it's
attention.
Sexy. Yeah.
That's right. I'll give you that one. What is an internet platform where you can go to watch someone else play a video game?
Not Vine. But it's the Twitch.
Wow. Okay, you're pretty good at this.
Wow,
okay.
I did not know that.
Okay. What did people, generally millennials, do in MySpace?
Listen to music and listen to other people's recorded music.
You know this stuff. This is like you're actually scoring
not TV.
well. Okay, TV. Okay, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? There's TV for you.
Nemo.
No. Do you know?
No idea.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob.
You got it. That's TV. Okay, another TV thing. Ashton, can you name the Simpsons family members?
Oh my God, I have to show you this. Yes. Homer, Maggie, Bart, and what's the mother's name? You're going to give it to me, aren't you?
Julie Kavanagh. It's Marge Simpson,
Marge.
but I'll give you a point there. I think you're actually starting to take over here, but that's okay. We'll see if Pooja can steal a couple. Name one of the Spice Girls.
40.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Ashton. Name any hit song from the last 5 years.
Oh God. Lord. Lady Gaga.
Yeah,
Taylor
but
Swift.
name a song. Pooja, can you think of one? Because I'm coming to you.
What about like the Disney song, or like Let It Go? Like
That was from 2013. That was not the last 5 years. That was 10 years ago.
but the new one, the new
the new one. That was
that was within the last 5 years. What
Into
was
the
that?
Unknown. Into the Unknown.
Into the Unknown.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
God, can I share my screen? Because my California family recreated The Simpsons for Halloween, and you've got to see it to believe it. Can you see that picture?
Oh my goodness. This is like a recent Halloween?
This was this Halloween. I mean,
Wow.
This is a reason enough to have children.
This is
that not
hardcore. Like this is people.
I told you it was worth it. I told you.
Wow.
And they had the right children in the right order. So they planned
My
this like
goodness.
8 years ahead. Okay. I never like burst into a podcast interview to share my screen, but this was a remarkable achievement and I knew you'd want to see it.
That is quite remarkable.
Are you giving me the Simpsons one, even though I couldn't come up with Marge?
It depends on how well we scored, and I'm going to try and even it out, but
You've already won. You don't need the points.
These young people, they're so whiny.
Hey, listen, you've both been great sports. I hope you had fun, and I hope you found this conversation worth the wait. Took us a while to get it going, but I'm really grateful to both of you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Nice
thank
to meet you,
for
Pooja.
doing this. Yeah, great to see you.
And great to see all of you, friends. Thanks so much for being here. And as always, thank you to my two guests, Ashton Applewhite and Dr. Pooja Viswanathan. For more information about Ashton's latest book, you can go to thischairrocks.com. And for info about Pooja's work with smart wheelchairs, visit brazemobility.com. My name is Rick Miller, and I wrote, recorded, and edited this episode with multimedia by my team at Kidoons. For more about the Boom Trilogy and our many other projects, visit kidoons.com or boomtheshow.com. Thanks also, as always, to my partners on this podcast, Leap, an online community where life experience meets innovation, created by CABI, the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation. For more info or to become a Leap member, visit cabi.com/leap. If you're on a podcast player, please follow us, write a review, tell someone about this or other episodes you liked. You can also send me any questions, comments, or feedback, Rick Miller Actor on Twitter or Instagram, or email rick@rickmiller.ca. And hey, in a polarized world, you have a choice. Build a wall or build a bridge. Build bridges, not walls.
Xing the gap.